everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Female Film Critics panel. And we're excited today. We have a special guest with us. We have Bee from the Film Bee here. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you. I'm really excited. I love talking to people about movies. So this is I don't think there's a better way of spending your day. It's perfect.
Agreed. Well, since it's your first time on the show, so why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you started in your love of movies?
Oh God! Wow.
I know.
How long have we got? the director's cut version of this, or I've always loved movies since being a child. I've always grown up watching movies, and I didn't realize you could actually write about movies. I didn't realize being a film critic was a job, or when it was in university, I started getting into it, and they had a magazine at my uni where you could write about film, and I was like, oh, I really like that, and I don't want to give it up. And since leaving university, I've kept up with that and written for various different sites over the years. So I've written for In Session Film, Next Best Picture, Filmotomy. I ran In Their Own League for a while, and now I'm I'm in motherhood moment at the moment, so I'm just
congratulations.
Thanks. So I'm deciding what I want to do next, but I get I want to launch my new podcast, which is Ultimate Movie Year, where people come on and talk about their favorite year in film and pick 5 films from that year and talk about it. But yeah, my passion mostly is writing about film. So hopefully in the future I can get back to that full time.
Do you remember the first film that really impacted you?
Yeah, that's as a child, I think Fox and the Hound really had an impact on me, because I know people say now about Disney, all about, oh, they have this message, they have that message, but Disney has always been about having good messages in their movies, and that was the first one that I watched, and I was like, oh, it's so good to see a fox and a hound coming together and having a friendship, and that really had an impact on me. And I remember watching that movie and falling in love with animation, and it was the first time I properly cried at a movie. I think I watched it so much my mom had to take the VHS tape away from me. The same with Bambi. She wouldn't let me watch Bambi because I kept crying too much. But that's the first time I remember watching a movie and not just seeing it as entertainment, seeing it as something more. So and being really hit by that sort of profound message about it doesn't matter what your background is, you can become friends and stuff. And I think that's kind of beautiful. But I think I really sort of seriously got into movies in 2005. It was the year I actually started to understand how movies are made and the technical aspects of movie making. And I think I became obsessed with rewatching Shawshank Redemption over and over again. So
yeah. Were you always drawn to the sort of more emotional films?
Yeah, I think so. I know it sounds weird, but it's I like a movie that makes me cry. So it's I've always liked movies, but anything with animals or children gets me going. So it's I don't know. I'm not good when it's anything like that, like Lassie or anything. Animals in peril, I get really upset, but especially about children. But I've always liked emotional movies. I don't know. I just drawn to them.
No, I remember in those movies too, Old Yeller, or movies like that make you cry.
What's the one about the animals trying to find their way home?
Oh, the
Homeward
uh
Bound or
home,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm like anything
The
with, I don't.
great adventure or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's like
Yeah.
anything to do with animals trying to get, out in the wild, being lost and finding a way home. I'm like, oh my God, that's so sad.
Yeah. Do you remember some of the early films that you saw in the theater?
Oh yeah. So I used to go to the cinema a lot as a kid. And I remember watching Babe, and
Oh,
that's such a good movie. I was kind of upset though because I wanted to see Jumanji, but apparently that was like too, like my mom was like, no, that's a bit too like grown up for you. So she took me to see Babe, and I was annoyed because I couldn't figure out why the animals were talking.
uh-huh.
And I was like, I know why, they're robots. So I had to convince that they had used robots rather than real animals.
Uh-huh.
And then I mean I went to see Toy Story,
Well, they
like
use
all.
puppets, so that's kind of close.
Yeah, I know. It's like in my mind, I was
Some
like,
puppets, some real,
yeah,
some.
I was like in my mind, I was like, they must have made robots of animals because whatever, how else would they have been doing that? Yeah, I remember watching Toy Story as well, and also being like convinced I was going to find my toys moving. And
Yeah.
like every time I would sneak into my room ready to spot them like talking. But yeah, I mean, I loved all the Disney ones from the 90s, obviously. So,
It was a good era.
it was. I mean, I
Really
love
good era.
like even the ones like Hunchback of Notre Dame and like Tarzan, Hercules, like the lesser
Yeah.
ones that people, I thought they was really good. I remember one time I got really annoyed because we were late for a showing of Hercules, and I was like, all I did was like moan in the car about like we're gonna miss the opening, and it's like it has the best songs and all this sort of stuff. And
Yeah. I
but
mean, even some of those movies are messy and flawed,
mm,
but they were so ambitious that
right. Even like I know Pocahontas is like historically inaccurate and like, oh my
yeah.
god, all this other stuff. But Pocahontas is like the animation is so
Oh yeah.
beautiful, and the music, and I kind of like feel we're not getting that in the Disney remakes. They're not really capturing those like magical moments.
No.
It's like the Lion King one. I remember going to see that and like absolutely being like
It
so
was absolutely
annoyed.
terrible.
I was
Yeah.
like, what have they done to like the Lion King?
Yeah.
It's like that moment where like Mufasa dies, and it's like supposed to, like in the cartoon, in the animated version, it's so heartbreaking. But then it's
Yeah.
like in the like it's not even live action. You can't even call it live action. But in like the
The
remake,
remake. Yeah.
yeah, it's just like, oh no, he's dead. Okay.
Yeah, it's so flat. And I just couldn't believe that somehow it was longer, but
Yeah,
they
what
took
did
out
they add? They always make them so long. I was just like, what are they
that's true
adding
with
to it?
Little
It's
Mermaid.
like, I haven't seen that, but Beauty and the Beast was like, they
Oh,
added a whole thing about Belle's mom and the Black Death, and I'm like, yeah,
it was
this is entertaining for kids. I'm sure they're loving this bit of the film.
so weird. That was so weird. Yeah, and they like went to all this work to make Gaston like more likable, and I'm like, why are we doing
Why?
that? Like,
He's you like him because he's a bit of a, idiot, he has the best song. I always say this, like the villains in the films have the best songs,
yeah, I'm
so
hoping with this new Wish movie that
mm.
we get like a good villain song. It seems like that we're actually getting a villain at least,
Oh
because
yeah,
with the
because
last whole bunch of movies from
yeah,
Disney have
there's
been
no,
generational trauma
yeah,
and all that, which I'm fine with it, but it's just like anytime you do anything over and over and over and over again, like it
it's
starts to
just,
lose its
yeah.
efficacy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I like the sort of stuff that's coming out. Like I did like Turning Red quite a lot.
Oh
I
yeah.
thought that was like, but to me, those are really, this feels like this films are very small scale at the moment, even though
Hmm.
they're not, they just feel small scale.
Yeah,
And
I can see that with the feeling small scale.
yeah,
Definitely
and
with Luca for sure, and
mm,
Turning Red. I wasn't the biggest fan of Turning Red. I just I just felt like especially the mother was just too much. She was just over the top and just too shrill for me. And I
Yeah.
just felt like the metaphor was very sloppy. And
Yes.
it
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
I think it was kind of brave to do because it's not really a topic that's been addressed in a child's film all that much. Like,
Yeah.
but I mean, it just
Because
felt.
kids don't have, because they're like embrace the panda and it's like okay, but like kids don't have any choice of whether to like turn off the
Yeah.
panda or turn it on like they kind of do in the
I wish
movie.
I wish
They
that was
just
the way.
yeah, like teenagers would love that, to be able
Yeah.
to decide to not experience puberty. They don't have that choice.
No.
And so I found the film kind of not helpful of like,
No,
okay,
that's
what are they
true.
supposed to do with this? And I actually thought this Ruby Kraken was much better.
Oh, I
Of
haven't seen that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the mom was way more reasonable.
Mm.
Is she wasn't flying off the handle, but she really didn't want her daughter to go into the water because she's afraid, similar kind of fears of this Kraken being unleashed, kind of thing.
Mm.
But I just thought it was handled with a lot more nuance. And I really liked the family story. uh,
Yeah.
I seem to be the only person in the world who thought it was a little bit weird in Turning Red that they just like invented a ritual for an actual religion. Like
Mm.
I don't know, I thought that was weird. Like they have this whole ritual for the panda, and I'm like, it's like a real religion. Like it's not like fake. It's not bad. I don't know. I thought that was weird, but I've never heard anybody else with that critique. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me,
I mean, yeah,
but
it does. I think my biggest problem with Turning Red was like, um, it, if you're a guy, I don't think you can really like necessarily connect with the movie. I think you can to
mhm,
some level, but the thing with Disney movies is that it's like they always seem to be very universal. Like
mhm.
anybody from any background can connect to them.
I just
Uh,
felt like with Turning Red, so much of it was look at what they were trying to do.
mm.
Sure, but did they succeed? No, not in my opinion. But
It had some really like good moments in it, and I think it was like,
yeah,
but there's no way it could have been like released in theaters like
hmm,
properly. It would,
yeah.
it was just too, I don't know, niche and
It's different, that's for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies. You have this idea for this podcast. You're thinking of
Mm,
starting the Ultimate Movie Year podcast.
yes.
And so let's talk a little bit about that. What are some of your ultimate movie years? Do you have?
Oh, see, I was thinking about this. It's such a hard question, really, because everyone's go-to answer is 1999. Like, I don't know how many
Mhm.
people I've spoken to were like, "Oh, that's a great year," and it is a good year, and there's like a huge selection of movies from that year. But I try.
That
I
was a
was
good
like,
year.
yeah, I was thinking like, in terms of groundbreaking movies, I always think like 1967 is quite a good year for movies. Because that was like the start of the new Hollywood era, which is like my favorite time in cinema,
Mhm.
from those like, 60s up until like the early 80s.
Mhm.
And I think that had like The Graduate, it had Bonnie and Clyde, it had
Mhm.
In the Heat of the Night.
Not a good time for animation though. It was
No,
rough.
that was a
Yeah.
rough, yeah, that was kind of rough. But I tell you what is a good year for animation and is also a really good year for films generally is 1989, which is the
Yeah.
year that I was born. So that's like, I'm not just choosing that year because I was born in that. I love that year because obviously you
Yeah.
have the Little Mermaid, and that
Yeah.
like
It
kicked
was
off
special.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you had like Batman come out in that year, and that like
Hmm.
really like redefined what the blockbuster was. And
Yeah. Well, it's
um
just such a different dynamic than what we have
mm,
now, because there were years in the 80s where there wasn't a single animated mainstream
no, I
animated film,
know.
not none. And so when one would come out that was like flawed and not the best, it was like the only one. So you were like
But
more
the
kind to it, I
80s kind
think.
of had like some really special movies that I
And
don't think you would see today. Like,
yeah, I mean, you
you know,
did, but like if something like Oliver and Company,
mm,
it comes out, it's like one of only maybe two that year. And so you appreciated it more. Whereas now something like Encanto can come out and people like enjoy it and like it,
yeah,
but then are moving on to the next
exactly.
film because there's, I mean, literally, over 30 mainstream animated films in a year that come out. And so it's really hard to kind of make that
Mm,
same kind of cultural and artistic impression, I think, that e- that even more mediocre films were
yeah.
able to do in the
And I
80s.
think like nowadays it's all about setting up a franchise and like selling
Yeah,
toys and stuff. And
yeah,
I think like when I look about like um Basil, the Great Mouse Detective,
yeah,
like that's a great movie.
yeah.
And that was like in the 80s when like
Underrated. Yeah,
really underrated.
yeah.
And I don't no one ever really talks about that movie, and I think that's like a movie that definitely could have had a franchise to it, like because you have all the Sherlock Holmes books.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. They, when they're doing all the cheap calls, I'm like, why did they think
Yeah.
of, because it's not like, I mean, it underperformed, but it wasn't like the Black
uh,
Cauldron or some like
no.
horrible flop. And so yeah, I've wondered about that too. That why, like, it seems like the most obvious one to make a cheap
Right,
coal for
there's so
when they were
many
doing
like,
all of those, like
yeah.
Bambi 2 and all this stuff. Like,
Oh my god, yeah, why did they do Bambi
why,
2?
why not do some bunch more cases? Like,
Yeah,
it's an interesting.
I kind of feel like they should have kept going with the Rescuers, right? Because they had
Uh-huh.
the Rescuers Down Under,
Yeah.
but like that's one movie I think they definitely should remake, because like I love,
Remake the Rescuers.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm. Well,
because
my
this,
friend Stanford, because he loves the Rescuers, the original
yeah,
Rescuers.
it's
I'm
so
not the
good.
biggest fan of it, but he would be thrilled if we got more
I
Rescuers.
like it because there's a mouse called Miss Bianca in it. So
Yeah,
I'm
that
like,
makes
it's so
sense.
cute. And she has like the best outfits in that movie. But
Yeah, it's
did,
just cute.
I just thought that was like, that's like a kind of a cute movie. It
Yeah,
has like a nice, like the idea of helping children in need and stuff. It's
yeah,
always so sweet. And I think like I like the idea of them being like almost like Mission Impossible, like a sort of like
yeah. I mean, I think
international,
especially that second one,
yeah,
and I love. I think it's Wilbur. I think in the second one, but the whole thing with the mad scientists experimenting
yeah.
on the bird is hilarious in that movie.
Well,
But
so
I
come on, I don't know why Disney don't do this. It's like they had like that's what they need to do. It's like they have all this opportunity to like go back
yeah.
through the like you know
Well,
catalog
and then
and
they make all these they remake stuff that doesn't need to be remade. And what's interesting about Disney too is I think it's maybe like underreported how much of a failure their live
mm,
action division has been over the last 20 years.
yeah,
If you take out the remakes and you're just looking at live action
right,
films, they, aside from the Pirates movies, they have just
yeah,
had
because
one flop after another,
they
and they
had
have tried so hard.
Tomorrowland, didn't they?
Tomorrowland, John Carter,
Yeah,
Lone Ranger.
mm-hmm,
I mean, and they've had so many movies in their live action division that should have been great, but were either like or like terrible. Like something
mm-hmm.
like Jungle Cruise that had all of the elements to be great,
Really good
and
movie,
it was
yeah.
just like It was fine.
I don't
But
know. I don't know why why they can't really capture that. It's like they're just
yeah,
going. They saw the Pirates of the Caribbean model and thought we'll just
I mean,
repeat that with every movie.
they have tried so hard to start new franchises. I mean, even something like Wrinkle in Time, and
Mm,
there's been, it's not from a lack of trying. They're going to try to make another Tron movie, but
yeah, I'm not sure
they,
about how I feel about that.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, they have, if it wasn't, in a certain way, I guess I understand the remakes, because if it wasn't for the remakes,
Yeah, they would be in
it would be
serious trouble.
bad, really
Yeah.
bad. I mean, I guess they had like some modest hits with their like sports movies for a while, like
Mm,
Miracle and stuff like that.
yeah.
But outside of that, certainly their attempts to do like adventure or to start to create the new pirates have just all failed. And anytime they've tried to do sci-fi is just not
Yeah.
worked.
Something
It's
about their sci-fi films just I
it's
don't know what it is.
you would think that with all of the like brain trust of that's there at Disney, you think that in 20 years they would have more than one hit.
It
It's crazy. I don't know, it's interesting. But
is.
I think the 2 years that I immediately think of when I think of a great movie year is I think of 1993.
That is a good movie. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Jurassic Park, Sandlot, Dazed and Confused, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, Schindler's List, and Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, I love Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah.
Such a good movie.
It's kind of like that's a movie that is completely different watching as an adult versus
Oh
watching
yeah.
as a teen slash child.
Yeah, yeah. That's I mean, I
Because
really
what he does is like kind of mean and
yeah,
crazy,
weird.
and like
Yeah.
to do that to your
Like
wife, like what?
yeah, I'm like I can understand. Like he's a good father, but he's a terrible husband. So it's
Yeah,
like yeah, but I love those like
but
Robin
it's
Williams
very
movies.
sweet. Yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah,
I watched the other day Patch Adams, and that's not like a great movie, but
uh-huh,
he put so much effort into like
yeah.
that role, and I just kind of I miss him so much. Like
I
I
know.
feel like the world is kind of empty without him. Like even movies like Flubber, like they're terrible movies, really, but he just had brought so much
Yeah,
energy. We don't
it's
really,
hard to watch
yeah,
him now. I mean, it just, especially Dead Poet Society, it's just tough for me to
mm,
watch now. I
yeah,
mean, it's always been it's a tough one to watch, and just for the emotion of it, but also now it's like somebody who covers theater
mm.
and I would just think, what is wrong with these parents? Like, so your son is in a play, like who cares?
Yeah.
How dare he be in a Shakespeare play? but,
Yeah, no,
but yeah, when he the whole Captain My Captain, and it's
mm,
tough. It's tough.
yeah, yeah. There's like certain movies that you watch now, like as an adult, and they really do hit you quite hard, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I wasn't expected to have this like emotional response to him.
Yeah. But I mean, it is unbelievable that Steven Spielberg made Jurassic Park and Schindler's List in the same year.
Yeah, when was Hook? Did Hook come out in '93, or was that
What is
like
it?
Hook? Was that
Oh,
under
Hook. No, I think that's later. Let's
maybe
see.
it's a year, either year before,
That's
or year
90,
after?
no, 91. So it
Oh
was
my God.
before.
I don't know why I thought I just keep that's such a crazy like time for Spielberg. He had all of these like big
Do,
films,
are
and
you
then
so are you a big Hook fan?
I like Hook. I've always liked Hook. I think it's great. And I think I mean, that's like the proper Peter Pan film to me. Like it just
Yeah.
works.
I don't hate it. I don't have the nostalgia that a lot of my peers have.
Mm.
Um and one of my least favorite tropes in movies is the sullen, miserable teenager. I hate that. And I don't know if it just brings back bad memories. being a teenager was hard. But
Yeah.
I do feel like we rob teenagers of their humanity sometimes.
That's true.
Like,
Yeah.
yes, it is a tough time, but they're not monsters. They have
No.
varying emotions. And I guess I prefer movies like Perks of Being a Wallflower,
Mm,
where there's a lot of different things going on. It's not
yeah.
just the and I could not stand The Whale last year. I thought that movie was
Uh, that's one
terrible.
I haven't seen that because
Ugh,
I'm
don't.
like I feel really anxious about watching that movie.
Yeah, I thought it
Like
was garbage. I did not like it at all.
I like
Uh,
Brendan Fraser. I think he's
yeah,
like a great actor, but it's just like we watched the trailer to the movie and I just like the trailer got me down. I was like, I
yeah,
have like there's so much going on at the moment. Like I don't really want
yeah,
to watch something that's not gonna like make me
yeah.
feel good.
So
You
like
know?
the angsty, belligerent teenager plot of Hook,
Oh,
not my
yeah.
favorite. Not my
Yeah, I can
favorite.
understand that. I think it's just like to me, like it's so bright and colorful. And then you
Yeah.
have like the likes of the recent Peter Pan and Wendy film. And I just think like, oh, I tell you actually,
It was
the
disappointing. I was
yeah,
hoping it because I love Pete's Dragon. I think that's a
yeah,
beautiful movie. And I think that David Lowery makes such beautiful films. And I admire
yeah.
the way that he's still able to keep his voice and do these big studio
Mm,
films and then go and do an independent film. And you always know, okay, I'm watching a David Lowery film. And I
yeah.
think that's very hard to do and very impressive. But I don't know. I didn't I gave it like I think a 6 out of 10. It was just very like kind of boring and not the
It just didn't
I think it
have
was just
like
very like
yeah,
forgettable,
Neverland is
unfortunately.
meant to be like this magical place of like bright colors
Yeah,
and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's like, why would you go there if it looks
maybe his
really dull and
aesthetic.
depression? And like what would be the point? You're just like,
Yeah.
it just reminds me too much of the real world. It's like,
Yeah, it's true. There wasn't that much whimsy to the film. I really wanted it to be better, but
yeah.
yeah.
But that's the thing. I think like the Disney remakes are just a bit, they're going too far with trying to capture realism and they're
Mhm.
kind of forgetting like
Yeah, I was
how
thinking about that the other day that
yeah
one of the things about these live action remakes is that almost all of them remove the comedy from
yeah, it's
the
true.
animated films. Like
Yeah.
here with I actually thought the Little Mermaid was okay because I thought that she was so good and I
I
thought
think
that
yeah,
her and the
yeah.
guy had really good chemistry. So it was a lot better than I expected, but they totally stripped it of the comedy
Mm.
from the film. I mean, they get rid of most of Ursula's jokes in Poor
Oh,
Unfortunate Souls.
what?
Yeah, yeah, like they don't have her saying like body language or anything like that. So she's just more like dark and menacing, and they obviously get rid of the chef, you know,
Oh
that was so
no.
I mean,
Oh.
I knew that was coming, but they don't really they try to replace it with this weird song that Scuttle sings. Um, but yeah, it's definitely going at the very beginning. There's this whole quote about how a mermaid cries from
Mm.
the original novel, and so the whole attempt was to make it like dark and serious, and I think you could say that about almost all of the remakes is that they
Yeah, I kind
definitely
of like felt
even
that
like
with
Alice in Wonderland
yeah.
is like a
Oh, see,
darker, like
I do blame Tim Burton for starting this all
I,
off.
I know, me
I
too,
hold
me
him
too.
completely responsible
Yeah,
because the Alice in Wonderland film,
no whimsy.
it's so ugly looking. I'm
Yeah,
just gonna say it. It's ugly looking. Johnny Depp is super creepy in that movie for no
yeah.
reason. It
It's just
has
no
this like
fun.
it's no fun. And it has like this dumb plot, which is her trying to like having to fight the Jabberwocky and like
Yeah, the prophecy.
it's like oh
Yeah,
it's so boring. The whole point of Alice in Wonderland was like it was just
yeah.
you following
Even
her around and
yeah,
like her reacting.
Even Aladdin, they make like serious with her like singing that song and they definitely that I think there is I've seen that actually with Hallmark this last a couple of years since they have new management and everything. And
Mm.
I've seen that when they want to make something that they feel is important, it ends up being a drama.
Ugh.
And it's like, no, rom-coms are important
Yeah,
too. And
you can
everyone
have
deserves to
some.
have a
Mhm.
rom-com made with people they can relate to. And like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I can just see
But
that.
then it's like some rom-coms can like have really serious things in them. I've always
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
like Love
True.
Actually is a really great rom-com because it's like
Yeah.
telling the anthology and then like different stories. I always think, is it the Alan Rickman and Emma Thompson
Yeah.
story? And that's like kind of funny, but has like a really serious like
Yeah.
plot line to it. And
Yeah.
it's like in between that you've got all the silly ones and stuff. It's like
Yeah.
I always think like, I don't know,
Well,
like
even
those type of rom-coms really work well with me.
yeah. Well, and even if you look at the classics, like even just say Jane Austen, I mean,
Mm,
those stories had weightier moments and themes. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
especially in like Sense and Sensibility. I mean,
Right.
it had, and she almost dies. Marianne
Yeah,
almost
yeah,
dies.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
so and just the economic realities of the situation and the choices that the women had and things like that. So yeah, definitely.
yeah.
I mean, you need to have some I was actually just watching Sleepless in Seattle, and that movie is holds up so well. It's
Hmm.
so well written.
Yeah,
The dialogue and how funny it is. I had forgotten
yeah,
because it's also very sad, and any story is going to have a mixture of the two.
yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
know like people like criticize Pretty Woman, but there
Mhm.
is some like serious moments in that movie, like
Yeah.
the whole
She almost
creepy
gets raped. I
yeah,
mean,
the creepy friend, his
yeah.
creepy friend in that movie. And uh they at the very start of the movie there's like they find like the lady one of their like prostitute friends has been killed and stuff, and it's like it does have some serious moments in that movie. It's not just Julia Roberts going and shopping. There's like some really like dark stuff in that movie, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think like rom-coms kind of get a bad
Yeah,
rep.
they do.
I used to hate them, but then I kind of fell in love, and now I
Yeah.
get it's like I get it now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, they do. It's true. And I mean, obviously anything can be done poorly and anything can be done well. I mean, it always comes
Yeah,
down to the writing.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Writers are so important, and that's
Yeah.
like why we need them now more than ever. I
Yeah.
think because
Yeah.
especially with like AI, I'm like
Yeah. I know
terrified
it's
to see what the
scary.
future is going to be like.
Well, the other year that I think a lot of people would pick, the first one that I thought of after 1993 is 1939. I think
Oh
you
yes,
gotta do the
it's
Wizard of
so good.
Oz, Gone with the Wind, Stagecoach, Wuthering Heights, Love
Hmm.
Affair, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. That is
Yeah,
an amazing year.
that's amazing year, and there's like such like landmark movies that like really like, and I think it's interesting like the years kind of coincide with like turbulent times that are happening in society at the time.
Yeah.
Like I was like going through 1999 and like looking up all the stuff that was happening in that year, and I was like, oh my god, there was so much going on, like the Y2K crash and stuff. And it was like 1939 you have like the start of World War II and all the
Mhm.
other stuff going on, and it's like there's something about like how cinema brings people together during like times of crisis,
Yeah. And I
and
think
like
that's what
how
was
movies
especially
unite us.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was especially hard about the pandemic is that like that was something I never thought would be taken away. It never
Mm,
even really occurred to me that like live theater and movies could be taken away,
I
you know,
know. It
for
was
like an
like
extended period of time.
it
And so
was
then
so
when it
hard.
did, it
Yeah.
really threw me.
Welcome to the Pilot Podcast. My name is BJ.
And my name is Me Too, and we promise this promo is worth it, so please don't skip ahead.
We're two judgy friends who put our judgmental skills to work for you. We review the pilot episodes of new and popular shows and shows that our listeners request to answer your question, should I watch this?
Look, a lot of us are spending a lot more time at home, and yes, we should be reading and trying new projects and enriching ourselves, but does anything beat binging a great show?
Let us take the guesswork out of deciding what your next show will be. Tune in to The Pilot Podcast at thepilotpodcast.com.
I really feel like we lost quite a lot in terms of like the movie going experience. It's already like suffering, like people's attention spans are so bad. Like I hate going
And
to
yet the movies keep getting so long.
I know. I hate going to the movies now because I always get distracted by somebody on their phone, and it's like the worst. And yeah, like kids' movies are really getting too long. Like
So long. I mean, and not only are the movies long, but they can't even tell the whole story in one movie. They
yeah,
gotta
have to
like
do
two,
a part
three.
two.
Yeah, it's like, oh wow.
I remember like what was it? The Avengers movies. And I was just like, this is still going on. Well, it's like, who's fighting who? I don't understand.
They kept me for a long time. I was invested in the MCU for a long time. And then I finally, really last year, I feel like was the first year that I was like, I can't keep up with all these shows. I can't keep up with.
No, I think it was 2021 with Black Widow. Like Black Widow came out, I was like, okay, that's good, but it doesn't really matter because she's dead. So it's like, don't really,
it was fine.
It was okay.
It was just,
yeah. And then WandaVision came out and I kind of liked that, but then
it was so good.
What was I watching? I started trying to watch something else. And
I feel like that was the last. Well, I really enjoyed Loki, but I feel like that was the last thing I was like really invested. I mean, I liked No Way Home. That was super fun. But just as far as like really be invested in the
but that was
franchise.
Just like nostalgic, wasn't it? It's just trying to get them all like together in one place. And I was like, that's kind of cool, but at the same time, I feel like you're just kind of
done with heart and emotion. Like, I think it was well done. I really did not like the previous one, Far From Home. Spider-Man Far From Home. I thought that was terrible.
I honestly haven't seen that one.
I thought it was really bad.
And Spider-Man is like my favorite superhero. And I was just like, I don't know if it's Tom Holland. I just thought like Andrew Garfield, like they just gave up with that. And I thought he was like a really good Spider-Man. It's like they just gave up with the
I
amazing...
like him as Spider-Man. I don't love him as much as Peter Parker. He was a little smug for me.
He had a kind of like a bit of a bratty attitude. Like you kind of just like, he's kind of mean to Gwen Stacy. Like I never got that, but
my favorite with Andrew Garfield was Tick Tick Boom. I absolutely
he's so good in that.
Loved that movie.
He's a really like underrated actor. Like I always liked him. And
I just related it to it so much. The whole thing of like being a creator and like trying so hard to make something and nobody would like take you seriously. And like, is it even that good to begin with? I don't know. But like, just with my little podcast and other stuff that I do, you work so hard, and the whole message of the movie, and just like keep grinding it out, keep trying, don't give up. Like I loved it so much.
I think my favorite moment was like the song they sing in the diner, and like it all falls apart, the diner just like collapses, and
there were so many
visually great.
There were so many Broadway Broadway greats in that scene. That for a theater fan like myself, that was really fun. I'm like,
but I mean, I think this would be a really good like time to have the musical come back, because I was like thinking about like how the musical was like so important during like the Great Depression era.
It is kind of funny that like the big takeaway from quarantine was let's make musicals, because but none of them have done that well. So
I know.
We had In the Heights, and we had West Side Story, and we had like a whole bunch of different musicals, and I mean even Cats.
Cats. I forget that was a thing.
Everybody want to make a musical, but I am a easy sell when it comes to musicals. I love even ones that other people like Dear Evan Hansen. I understand the flaws. It's not a perfect film, but I love the songs and I love the
It's
overall message of
yeah, I think I kind of like that streaming platforms are doing, like, like Netflix with
like
Ticket
Schmigadoon and
Balloon,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think like musicals are something that needs to be seen on like the biggest screen possible. And I don't
Yeah.
know, it's like we're just not getting that. Like this should be
Yeah.
the time where there should be like comedies, musicals, and
Yeah.
animation should be like at like the box
Yeah.
office, because those
Yeah.
are what draws people. Like a good musical, you can appeal to anyone,
Yeah.
like regardless of the age,
Yeah. Certainly appeals to me, I'll tell you that. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to this. Well, I'm looking forward to The Color Purple. I'm looking forward to Wonka. I know some people didn't love the trailer, but I thought it was
not sure
I
how
thought
I
it was
feel about that.
I thought it was enchanting. I loved
think
it, but
the
like I
problem
said,
is Timothy Chalamet looks a lot like my brother, and it's really distracting.
That's
So
funny.
every time I see him on like film, I just think it's just it's like my brother. It's like really hard, when you just can't like disassociate someone.
Yeah.
So
Well, how did you feel about 2022 as far as the film year? What do you think of Everything Everywhere? Were you a fan?
I was, but then I don't. It was a good film, but like again, it was a film that I felt didn't work well as in terms of sci-fi,
Mm-hmm.
like a sci-fi movie. It was like it, and
I recommended it. I thought
it was
it was
okay,
a good
but it's
film.
like it was a hard movie to try and sell to people. Like I tried to like recommend it to people, and then they had such a bad reaction to it.
Oh, really?
And
Yeah,
I
I
was
would be
like,
pretty careful who I recommended it to, but I mean, overall, I liked it. I liked all the homages to classic films, like In the Mood for Love and things like that. I liked the performances were all really good. There was I liked that it was about this marriage at its core.
yeah,
That was good. I just felt like sometimes it was a little try hard. It was
it was kind of
okay.
a
Like
bit.
once it got to the rocks and to the something, like, okay, now it's like you're trying too hard to convince us you're crazy and you're too hard
It
to
was a
convince
bit
us you're
too.
quirky.
I tell you what, the thing that got me was the bagel thing.
Yeah.
I was just like, I just don't
To me,
really.
it was the rocks. It was just like,
Yeah.
okay, come on. But I mean, it's an interesting thing because the Academy has been awarding the last few years, been awarding these smaller films.
But that's
and
not good for necessarily getting a bigger audience to watch the Oscars, because
yeah,
these
no, I
films
mean,
aren't.
for sure, because they have
Yeah,
I mean, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Coda,
yeah,
Nomadland.
yeah.
I mean,
Those
it's
are
an
great
interesting
films
thing.
to watch, but
Yeah.
as in terms of watchability, like rewatching them,
Mhm.
it's like I always go back and watch Gladiator, or Titanic,
Yeah.
or Saving Private Ryan. I know that didn't win Best Picture, did it? But those type of movies from that
Mhm.
like era.
Yeah.
They had like, I don't know.
What would you have given it to last year?
Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
Honestly, I thought it was a really good movie. And
Yeah, it was in my top 10. I really enjoyed it. I would have given it to Avatar. I was a big fan.
That
I
is
really
another good
loved
movie.
it.
Yeah.
I thought it was moving. I loved the immigrant story. I loved
the visual
family story.
Like it's
and the
visually
visuals.
stunning. Like, I get that. Yeah. I kind of felt like Top Gun just was like a movie that knew its audience. It was relatable. It had like a good, strong message. It had really like powerful moments in it.
Yeah.
I found it like touching, and it just kind of like was a movie that sort of like got people back into the theaters, and that was like to me should have been like rewarded. And
I really
Tom Cruise is like
enjoyed it.
still really likable, and try. I don't know. He just has that star power, and I felt
Mhm.
like I don't know. It's just kind of lost that nowadays with like
Yeah.
movie stars and stuff. But I don't know. I didn't really
Mm,
feel like last year was the best year for film. Just
mhm.
felt it was like kind of lacking in a way. But it's just been such a weird time. It's just been such a
Mhm.
weird time for like movies. That's like most of the movies I've watched, I've like not gone to the theater to watch them. I've like caught them at home. And I don't know, I just like
Well,
it's
I mean, I actually think it was a really great year for animation last year. I mean, I
that's
loved
true.
Puss in
Yeah.
Boots: The Last Wish. I loved Marcel the Shell with
Mm,
shoes on. I loved Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Um,
mm,
and there were a couple other smaller releases that I really enjoyed. I mean, as far as the best picture nominees though, I mean, I have Top Gun Maverick and Avatar in my top 10, but most of the others, I have All Quiet on the Western Front at 14. But there were a lot of movies
yeah.
that I would have nominated that didn't. I mean, that's the way every year, but especially because I loved The Menu. I thought that was great.
Right, yeah,
I
yeah.
really enjoyed Decision to Leave. Well, not
Mm,
enjoyed, but it was really well done. I thought RRR was outstanding. I was
yeah,
bummed that that
yeah,
didn't get nominated. And I mean, except for song.
yeah. I think the last time I was like thought they got it right was probably when they awarded Parasite.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
then
And then the whole world fell apart. It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
the world couldn't handle it.
Yeah, no, it's like, what's going on? That's when the like the simulation broke.
Yeah, exactly. That was so good. Oh. Uh, but yeah, it was a pretty good year for musicals and for
Yeah.
animated films last year, which means it was a pretty good year for the movies for me. 'Cause those are my favorite. Elvis, I liked. I had that in my top
Yeah,
30.
that was
That was pretty
yeah.
good.
That was pretty good. I did
Hmm.
think that like uh it looked good. It like yeah, I liked it. I mean,
Yeah,
not a massive Elvis fan, so to me it was like,
just had spectacle. I was really like,
yeah,
"Ooh."
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But
I
that's definitely what we need is like spectacle. I
yeah,
find like, well, I mean spectacle, not like special effects spectacle, like another Fast and Furious movie. Like,
yeah,
come on, we need spectacle where it's like costumes and
yeah. It's like RRR. I mean,
right.
that
I
movie
haven't
had
seen that, but
spectacle.
I know that's what people have like recommended, and I do really want to see it.
Yeah, you should definitely see it. It's super
I'll add
fun.
it to my list.
It's
I'll watch it for sure.
yeah.
But I mean I've been finding like horror films recently. I don't know what you're sort of like.
Yeah, I for a long time didn't watch horror, but I have been
Mm,
trying to get out of my comfort zone the last couple of
yeah,
years. And so I watched I've watched a bunch. I've watched the original Halloween. I watched a Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream,
mm,
um, and I liked all of those.
yeah,
Last year I saw Barbarian, The
yes,
Menu,
yeah, yeah,
um, other Black Phone. I saw
yeah.
that. So I'm trying to kind of
I just
work
think it's
in.
interesting
I
that
saw
they
Pearl
those
and X.
yeah. Yeah, those type of movies are
They're
doing
good.
quite well. And like horror seems to be a genre that like never dies, no matter
Uh-huh.
what happens. And you
Yeah.
make it like on such a low budget.
Yeah.
So like I find it really fascinating like how horror sort of like manages to uh be one of these films that like one of these genres that can connect with anyone.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Well,
we
I
just
realized because I used to
captures
think,
what's happening in society at the time.
yeah, what I realized that as long as there's like a little bit of fantasy in the horror, like it doesn't really scare me that much. Like,
Right.
because then I don't feel like it's like realistic. If I feel like, oh, this could actually happen to me, then I don't enjoy that as much.
Right. I
But
get that.
something like
Yeah.
Pearl or X or or barbarian. Like there's like a little bit of fantasy. Like you don't feel like, okay, someone's gonna murder me.
Yeah. I think it's I get really terrified with anything paranormal. I don't know why.
Oh,
It's
really?
like my imagination just starts going a bit wild. Like I just start hearing like something falls off a shelf. I'm like, ghost,
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
Before we go, I wanted to just talk about 2023 so far in film. And you had posted on Twitter, you'd seen Sound of Freedom, you were moved by it, you appreciate it. I felt the same. It's interesting because after I posted my reaction and my review, you'd think that I hated it because I said that I felt like there were parts of the film that felt a little propaganda-y to me as far as like promoting this organization and Tim as this like perfect person who's like, taking on the Colombian mafia by himself. Like it was just, I felt like, okay, this could have been more nuanced.
Right.
But I still recommended it. Like
those are fair criticisms. I agree with you.
Like I think people that are so tied to a cause with a film that they can't sit back and be like, okay, this person's job is to critique film.
Right, that's what you do. Yeah. No, I think those are fair criticisms. I do, I do think like it kind of undermined it all the other people who do their work and the like effort to, because it's like it's not just one person. One person wouldn't be able to organize all that and do that on their own.
Yeah.
It's like there's a network of people who are helping. And they should be recognized as well. And I do think like, he just didn't seem to have, he seemed a bit too perfect.
Yeah.
And I think I would have preferred, liked to have seen more of his family life. Like, how is his wife impacted by this? They've got all those children and she's like, he's off going out and,
they're like, didn't he mortgage his house or something? Like,
it's like,
and
it just felt like I try and like I keep saying about the film is like I it's not to me, I try and see it as not being about him but about the children who are like the real heroes, because
those child actors were like excellent and how they, I mean, they had a hard task of that they had to perform.
That was so hard. And I mean I always feel worried when it's like children are put through certain things. The movies, like how are they, like do they get like the
and I can't believe that movie only cost $14 million. It's felt
impressive
money. Like it felt really expensive. And overall I was gripped by it. I was
I was gripped by it too.
I thought that I really appreciated it, and I think that if it encourages people to even if it's not on this particular cause, but to like go out and do something, like just to not be sort of,
I just feel like
you just always have to take, and this is what I said in my reaction, I said you just have to take it with a grain of salt, and I think that's true for any based on a true story,
right? Of course,
they're making an entertainment, they're trying to,
they're gonna like gloss over certain facts, they're gonna like focus on more dramatic moments in the story. Like, we don't see him sort of like sat behind a computer desk doing, typing up loads of reports and stuff and all that sort of boring admin side of things. We don't, like, I I think to me, like the message of the movie is almost being like drowned out by all the controversy, and that's like a really like sad thing, because I said like I would have liked this movie regardless of who made it, because or who was acting in it, because it's like has a strong message, and I kind of want there to, you know, I don't know if I would want to watch it ever again because it was such a hard watch, but I do want there to be more movies that deal with these sort of
well, and it's not
topics
just
being,
like they really tried hard to make it like an engrossing
it wasn't
movie,
just
not just a message movie. It's not like it. So they really tried to like have characters, and good. I think the performances were pretty good, and so for me, I guess my criticisms were more of like a degree of radiation. It wasn't that it wasn't like, I just thought they could have done a little bit better with the characters and feeling like I was being sold something a little bit, but not a complete failure, you know, like there's that in between that, you know, of course the internet doesn't like to acknowledge.
I mean, that's the thing, it's really hard nowadays, like, you know, you either have to be against something like 100% or with it 100%. It's like you can't just be sort of like in the middle where you're sort of like, okay, this is good but it has some flaws, or you know, it's like it's not easy. And I think like the world has really turned on film critics, and that's the problem. Like they're now seen as the enemy, and it's like we're film fans, like, you know, at least that's what I feel. I'm a fan. I love movies. I want, you know, if I see a movie and I really like it, I want to encourage people to see it, you know.
Well, and that's what's so exciting when you can tell people about something really special. Like for me, it was last year, Marcel the Shell, or there was a little movie called Hit the Road that I absolutely loved. When you can tell people about these smaller films,
you want to get behind something and be like, look, this is a special movie, I connected with it, and I think you guys can find something like good about it. Like I always thought Leave No Trace was a movie that I wish more people had seen, and I connected with that because it has like a father-daughter relationship, and I lost my dad around that time, and
I love that movie
really
too.
Really hit hard. And I was like, you know, I wrote this piece about why it was like not really a review necessarily, it was more of like a personal sort of like essay about why it impacted me.
When she says the things are wrong about you are not wrong about me.
I
love that.
Like, I just feel like kind of I had that reaction to this movie. Like, it's like hard at the moment, like being able to connect with movies in the emotional level, I think, because there's like superhero movies and like, you know, all that sort of stuff. And I was like, I can't connect with someone that shoots lasers out of their eyes, you know. It's like
well, I mean, that's why I did end up going fresh on The Flash, was because like it's a flawed film on so many levels, but I did think that the emotion worked, especially that scene where he has to say goodbye to his mom. That worked for me. And
I don't know why, but I feel DC movies do that better than Marvel movies, because there's one of the problems I had with Captain Marvel is that we didn't have her having any emotional moments in that movie where she like had like a moment where she was like having a personal connection with anyone. She just felt
and I think that's what's part of the thing that has struggled since Endgames, because everybody in the world would have gone through like serious trauma with the snap, like everyone, and I think they've had a hard time kind of grappling with that and dealing with it.
It's too
telling
dark
stories
for them to
you end up something that's just kind of messy, like you had with Love and Thunder. You had, you know, that was just kind of tonally all over the
Yeah.
place. And and I don't know, it's just like they just can't quite know how to sort of deal with that. Like,
That would have been, they should have like kept that going for a while. Like there should have been more of a gap between Infinity War and Endgame, right? When the snap happened, right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't,
yeah.
and you could have like really explored the aftermath. And
Mhm.
I like that idea. Like, what would you do if 50% of the world disappeared? Like,
Yeah.
you know, and kind of, did you ever see that HBO show The Leftovers?
I never saw it, but I heard it was good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've, you know, it's such a good, interesting thing to me. But I
Yeah.
don't know what it is. It's like these movies, like the Marvel movies, just they don't know what to do. They're throwing everything at the wall and trying to see what
and
sticks.
like I felt that way with Eternals. There was lots of ideas there, but it didn't come together in a narrative that worked. It was messy, and I feel that way about a lot of Disney associated products right now, that like the ideas are interesting, but they're just not, like, the storytelling is missing to me.
Yeah.
And and I don't know if it's just because more and more movies are made by committee as opposed, or if they're just giving almost too much voice to individual creators or not enough. I don't know. It's an interesting thing, but
Well, I think
a
they
lot of
don't.
messy movies
Yeah.
that aren't like
I was
aren't
just like, it's like when I found out what
like, you want to hear a story. You want to
yeah.
hear a narratively complex
Yeah.
story that you follow a character from point A to point C and everything in between. And movies, so many movies now are so concerned about multiverses and
I know, I don't get that.
it's like, what's the narrative? What are we
Yeah.
supposed to take out of this?
Yeah, it's like I don't even, it's like when you think, oh, so this director is going to be attached with this movie, that's going to be good. But it's like, you know, these indie filmmakers, and you like is Chloe Zhao.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I like her work, but it was like there was nothing about her as a director. Her personal like voice was shown in the Eternals. That was like felt like it was completely
aside from like
stripped.
the vistas and the cinematography,
Yeah,
I
but
could see her
that's
voice. But like, yeah, in the
that's
narrative, like, where
it's
was
stripped
that?
away.
Yeah,
And
it's
it just
true.
feels like a shame. It's like, I guess it like if you want to survive in Hollywood, you have to take on those movies. You have to like get in if you want to get anywhere. But it's like, I don't know why it seems interesting. Like someone like Christopher Nolan can make, you know,
Well, yeah,
big
or
movies, and then also make like small, like also it's like one picture for them, one picture for me type of thing.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's, you got to admire James Cameron. I mean, that he makes the movie that he wants to make, and
Yeah, it
and
just takes him forever to make them.
somehow he's able to get these. Not only is he able to get the movies made, after he's able to get the studios to fund these insane projects for, decades, but that they always do really well. Like, the risk always seems to pay off with a James Cameron film. It's
Yeah, and
very
then
interesting.
they're always like, I don't know, they kind of push boundaries in
they
different
do.
ways. Like, he kind of, but then the moment he does something, I feel like everybody then jumps on board. Do you know what I mean? And then wants to try and
Good luck with
capture.
that.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm interested. It's like a strange time at the moment. I don't know what's going to happen in terms of like movie making. I really hope that we can get away from the big studios having so much control, and like, people like
Well, I mean, that is
Bob
exciting.
Iger, like
it's exciting about this thing, in a way, the Sound of Freedom doing so well. It's a small studio, small budget, and some creative ways to sell tickets. I think we should be pursuing all different kinds of things like that.
Like, I want movies to actually make people think and like go, like, because I went off and I started like looking into things. I was like, oh my god, I didn't realize like the problem was this bad, and like all this information I found, and it's like I know I'm not going to be able to change anything just on my own, but I'm like, if enough people get involved, and then enough people sort of like stand up and say, like, the real change needs to happen.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. I just feel like, everything is so political nowadays, and that's a problem. Like,
Yeah.
a kind of like, I think of all the great movies in the past that I've watched, and it's like, I didn't even I don't know necessarily like what the actors or the directors political beliefs are. I don't really care about that. It's about the message of the movie.
Yeah.
So it's like, I want there to be, I want us to move past this now and just be like interested in telling good stories.
Yeah.
And I think the film critics thing, where like film critics are like now like everybody's turned on them, needs to change, right? That's
Yeah, because
like,
they're film critics. The problem is, I think the problem is that film criticism and entertainment reporting got kind of merged, and so
yeah,
and that made, because it used to be that if you were a critic, you would never do like features, interviews, things like that,
right,
because they
yeah.
saw it as affecting your objectivity.
It's like,
And
you're
now that's been
promoting,
complete,
yeah.
and myself included. Like, I do interviews, I do, but I've covered red carpets, things like that. But I also always just try really hard to be real, but with my reviews. But that's becoming harder and harder to find critics who are not going to be impacted by press junkets and other things like that. And the fact that that critics are immediately lumped into like promotion of film, and it's just kind of crazy to me and sad. And I don't know if there's really no going back right now. So I don't know what's gonna. I'm just kind of hanging on for dear life.
I used to think that I could make this into a career, but now I'm like, no, it's like, I'm just gonna do it as fun. And it's like, if I upset people and I with my opinions on certain films, and like, I just have to be truthful. I'm not trying to like win brownie points and just say like, I like a movie because I want
because people can tell phoniness.
I'm
not interested. These people that like everything and never have an unpopular opinion.
I always
have, you're just like, they're just not interesting to me.
I always felt bad like giving like a movie a bad review, because I was like, oh, I understand like it's a lot of hard work to make a movie, but then I thought, like, how are people going to improve, right, if you don't give them some valid criticism? I mean, I think only like a handful of great film critics can get away with writing like, this movie is absolute trash, like a Roger Ebert and stuff. Like, he did it in a way where he made the review entertaining.
You just have to do it so rarely that when they, like, I recently ranted about And Just Like That, because I cover Sex and the City on one of my podcasts, and I was like, this show sucks. And people know when I say that I mean it, because I don't do bits. I'm not trying to entertain people. People know that if if you mean it, you mean it. I think there's too many, like, I think YouTube's kind of impacted that now, where it's like too often like you just tune into somebody and they're just like ripping apart ranting, ripping apart a movie, and it's like, that's entertaining, but if that's all you do, then it's not, that's not criticism.
No, that's just
I guess the ranting that I ranted about And Just Like That, and I ranted about the Disney Pinocchio remake. That was absolute garbage. And and I guess The Whale too. I absolutely hated that movie. So, but again, that it's that I do it so rarely that it's earned if I do it. So
I think like, you have to be truthful. If a movie didn't work for you and you had such a like negative reaction, It's like I try and at least say something good about something. Like
Yeah.
I've
There
reviewed,
usually is
yeah,
something
I've reviewed
positive to
movies
say.
and I'd be like, the actress is trying her best,
Yeah.
or it's just a shame like everything else is terrible. At least she's putting in the effort. Because I watched one about oh god, I'm trying to remember the actual movie. It was about like Nicole Smith, OJ Simpson.
Oh yeah.
ex-wife.
Oh yeah.
And I
Yeah,
can't
that looked
remember what
really
the
bad.
movie title was, but it was like I'm really fascinated with all that sort of stuff, like true crime and stuff. So I know that case really well, and they made it like tried to put a spin on it where it's like a stalker and a haunting thing, and it was so cheap and poorly made. But the actress, I was generally thought she was trying her best.
Yeah.
I just felt like the movie did her some, like, not only her disservice, but the actual victim involved. And I was like, I'm not going to say like this is a good movie. I'm going to be like fair and say like this is a terrible movie and I don't think it should have been made. It's like, but I didn't like take.
I think the key is, and I said this about my and just like that rant, is that I would say, maybe not as loud, but I would say every single word of criticism that I said, I would say it to their face. I would tell them that I did not think it was well done. And I
think that's a good way of putting it. If you got, if you want to be a film critic, you've got like, and you want to just rip on movies, then are you you might encounter these people in real life, and it's like, are you going to like, say that to their face? And I think like it's like kind of with Cats. You remember like everybody was trying to write like the worst review ever of it, and I was like, it was funny for a while, but everybody was doing it, and it's like I almost wanted to write a glowing review of Cats because I was like I wanted to go
hey,
against
they tried
everyone.
Something at least, right?
Hey, I like some of, like, I like the songs and stuff, and I thought some of this like it was entertaining. I liked
it was unique.
It was unique. James Corden was in it.
You tried, you need
awful.
to keep the humanity of as much as possible when you're talking about things, and so that's the kind of criticism that interests me, is like somebody who has a unique point of view, is willing to take risks, and either for or against things that I just feel like, okay, this person has like a unique voice, and is like, I'm not interested in someone that's always a contrarian, that's always either going for or against what's popular. That's not interesting to me. But are they willing to take risks, or do they have a unique perspective? Are they interesting? And that's what I'm interested in, and those are the people that I'm drawn to.
I think that's a really good way of like looking at it. And I think like I think it's just so hard to do film criticism now and be unique and get your like
it is hard.
And everyone's trying to do it, and it's like you can't take it too seriously. You've got to have a bit of fun. And like that's why I love, like, I always like going back and revisiting older movies, and like movies that flopped. And it's like Waterworld. I always love Waterworld, and I can't believe like that movie was a flop. And I will defend that movie. Like,
I have to go back and watch it because I watched it when it came out, and I was a teenager and I thought it was really boring. But
good.
But I'll have to give it another try.
It's so stupid. He has like
the fish man.
It's like
fish man.
Dumb, but I like it because it's like I don't know whether they were trying to make it serious, but it just didn't work. But it's like, I think it's so ambitious, and that's what I kind of like, is like the movies like Pacific Rim and Kong's Skull Island and stuff like that. It's like they were trying to do something different and a bit like ambitious, and I've got to respect that. Did it
Yeah.
work necessarily? No, but you know, at least it was something a bit different,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for
Oh,
coming on
no,
and talking
thank
with
you.
us. This was a lot of fun. If people want to follow you on socials, all that fun stuff, how do they do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm mostly on Twitter, so you
Yeah.
can follow me at the _film_B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll put all that information in the description. You can follow, and you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. Also check out the Hallmarkies podcast. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have the Patreon group and merch store where you can get our Female Film Critics
Ooh.
Panel logo on a shirt or wherever you want. It's pretty fun.
Nice.
And thanks again. It was great to meet you. And
I had
definitely
fun.
to have you back. And good luck with the
Yeah.
baby and everything.
Oh, thank you. I feel like I need it.
All right. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.